Americans, that's how people live. That's how people live real lives. The life that we have here isn't real. That's what we need to understand. We've become hermits. Stop it. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we got some fancy hot chocolate, although the marshmallows keep getting stuck in my mustache. I have 23 months left in this country, give or take. And you know what? If the YouTube keeps popping off like this, maybe I'll be able to leave a little bit sooner. So like and subscribe, stick around, help me out. Coming back to America, much has changed, and I've listed quite a few things. And it's not all doom and gloom, really. Because I feel like a lot of these things can be changed, and they can be changed on a personal level if we have the will to change these things. And one of these things is kind of like a common reflection we have when we look at the past. You know, when we look at our childhood, when we look at like what we enjoyed, why we grew up loving the 80s and the 90s, and if you're older, which most of you seem to be, you know, the 60s and 70s, you know, as kids, we spent so much time outside. And I don't know at what point that has changed. I don't think that you can just say that it's social media. I don't think that you can just say that it's the availability of smartphones. I think that is something a bit deeper than that, but I can't really put my finger on what it is. All I know is that we've entered into this new age of the hermit. You know, we choose to spend most of our life indoors. We choose to kind of retreat into a place of isolation. You know, the world has become scary. In this age of the hermit, there's no social life really, because social life can only exist in real life. Social life on the internet isn't real, not to our human biological side that kind of craves social interaction. You know, we are social creatures. We're just big monkeys, really. You know, in my free time, I like to bounce around because I'm used to being in Europe. I mean, I'm used to being in Greece at this point. I'm used to being in Turkey. And in people's free time, they go out, right? They socialize. We go get coffee. In Turkey, we have chai, which is tea. And, you know, if you get invited to go have coffee with somebody, it can be at 10 o'clock at night, and you can be there till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's a common thing, but social interaction is still really important. So why is it in America that we just don't do it anymore, right? People don't come over for dinner like they used to. You know, people just, they run out real quick, they do what they're going to do, and then they retreat back home, back to like the safety of their cave. Like I said, this is the age of the hermit. We've all become hermits. We've closed ourselves off from people. And I think that in this kind of like hermit experience that everyone's going through, you know, that kind of isolation is really kind of turned toxic. You know, when people talk about the outside world, they talk about, you know, how unsafe it is, how people can't be trusted, you know, how divisive the world is at this moment. And we really have to ask ourselves how much of that actually comes from inside of us at this point. I mean, we can't put the blame for our inability to just maintain a friend group, right? We can't blame that on politics. We can't blame that on religion. We can't blame that on the economy. The poorest people in the world have some of the best social lives. Why can't we have that? I feel like emotionally we're all a bunch of Scrooge McDucks, right? Just kind of like sitting on top of all of our big piles of money, even if we don't even have any. I mean, so many people find comfort just being in the comment sections of YouTube videos, or just, you know, talking to people on the other side of the world gaming. And like I said, I don't know when this began, but I do see a clear difference. When I'm back in Greece, right, we used to live a block away from kind of like a little park, right? It's this dog park. It's a big area. Every now and then they'd have like, you know, kind of bands come in, kind of like old school marching bands kind of thing. There was a kiosk, and there was like a little, you know, restaurant. It's very European, right? Very quiet little trees, but in the middle of the city. And kids there would play. As soon as school was out, kids there would play. They'd have the soccer ball out, right? They'd be kicking it around, and this would go late into the night, unsupervised. You know, the vast majority of Americans now don't allow their kids to be outside unsupervised at all. And yeah, America is a dangerous place. It's become dangerous, but it's always kind of been dangerous. We can't say that now it's particularly more dangerous than it has been in the past. You know what I mean? Because this isn't just in the cities I'm talking about. Right? This could be in rural areas. This can be in the middle of nowhere. Right? And this I will blame on social media. This I will blame on the news, because it is always focusing on the negative. And I hate to play a part in that, but I do get a bit of culture shock coming back to the States. But seeing people go in and out all day and then just run back. I mean, I moved into this place and I've met a couple of my neighbors, but some of my neighbors, I'll be outside with my dog, and the little dog, he's cute, he wears sweaters. And my neighbor will pull up and they won't even make eye contact, right? They'll just run to their door, unlock and go in. And I don't see them ever. I only see them go to their car and leave and come back. You know, and these aren't young people. They look like they're in their probably 40s or 50s. But this isn't like a strange thing. I think when I was younger, that would have been a strange thing. That would have been strange behavior. But now, it's delicious. I love it. But now, it doesn't seem strange. It seems normal. There's a strange dream that people have in America, and you see across memes and everything, where it's like, the people's dream home is just off in the middle of nowhere, isolated, miles away from civilization. You know, this kind of recluse idea, I mean, it used to be considered weird, strange. There's something wrong with you. Why would you separate yourself off from society? But I do understand kind of the escape from modernity. Because if this is what modernity is, if this is what progress is, then, you know, rage against it, you know, leave this, because this isn't good for anybody. How can you have a normal childhood just staying inside? And you can blame it on the pandemic, but I think it goes much deeper than that, because this was going on way before the pandemic, you know? I mean, parents, instead of having their kids go outside and play until the sun went down, until the street lights come on, they just give an iPad. They put an Xbox in front of their face, a PlayStation in front of their face, and just kind of let them go. So when they eventually leave the house, what social circle do they have? You know, when they go to college, when they eventually get a job, there's no coping mechanisms that they form through kind of the trial and error of in-person, face-to-face social interaction. Dealing with the anxiety, the shame, the embarrassment of acceptance, rejections, you know, just the little milestones that you go through in your social life, whether that's, you know, the first time you ask your girl out, going to your first dance, you know, getting in your first fender bender in your car, you know, having a bad date, you know, breaking the neighbor's window, you know, throwing the ball around. These little things people don't go through anymore. Right? And it may seem small. It may seem small. And in the modern world, those were things that really, you know, were part of people's lives. I mean, look in the movies and things like that. I mean, you look at a movie like Sandlot, you know, a true American classic movie. The whole thing revolves around kids going outside, playing ball, and hitting a ball over the fence, and having to deal with the embarrassment and the anxiety of, you know, approaching the scary old man and trying to get the ball. Of course, his big scary dog as well. But James Earl Jones, R.I.P., was a G, obviously, and inspired those kids, and one of them went on to the MLB. But I digress. Kids don't have that anymore. I cannot tell you the last time I saw kids playing baseball outside. Even when I'm up in the middle of Wyoming, right, in a small town of 2,500 people, you do see kids outside, but they just ride their bike from one place to another. There's no pickup games of basketball. There's no baseball games on the street. There's no kids throwing, you know, the football around. Even in a place like that, you still see kids running around with green hair, blue hair, and their life revolves around tablets. Their life revolves around video games. And this, if anything, is only a failure of the parents. I think neither should we, because society has pushed people to the point where they just don't have time. I want to make a video on just the pace in America. You know, one of the things I didn't really recognize when I went to Greece was, you know, the pace of life. I've heard this before, you know, pace of life, things are slower. But I think that the slow adjustment that I had, because I'm a busy person by nature, right? I have a bunch of little projects, and this is a hobby. Right? And I like this hobby because it takes up my free time. But people move at their own pace. But here, there needs to be a schedule. Things need to be stacked up, one after the other. And what chance do you have to breathe? And if you have kids on top of that, and especially in a country where single parenting is the norm, what time do you have to actually guide a child, you know, through their childhood to become a nice, healthy adult when you have no time to be a healthy adult yourself? And that may sound like a cope, and that may sound like, you know, an easy way out of, you know, having any responsibility on the parents, but I mean, it's just a fact, right? If you wake up and you have to go grind and hustle, and you have 2 jobs, or, you know, your job takes all day and all night, as soon as you get back, you have to worry about food and dinner and bills, and is the house falling apart, and does the car need an oil change, right? Did we pay our taxes? Did I run that red light, and am I going to get a ticket in the mail because now the government can afford aircraft to monitor traffic violations, right? But I can only afford the cheap white bread, you know, to make sandwiches for my kid. So that kind of constant anxiety and just the in and out nature of things, people are always in a rush. Yeah, the only safe place, I guess, that you do have in America is your home, right? Your house, your apartment. That's the only safe place that you have now. So maybe it does make sense that, people have become hermits, that people just want an escape from it all, because the demands from this society are unlike any other society that I've been to. Even in the West, America, I think, is unique when it comes to its hustle culture. You got to grind it out. And I think it pushes people to the limit because it gives them no respite. It gives them no chance to really sit back and appreciate the things that they're supposed to appreciate. Even the holidays are stressed and they're over before they get here. And it's just another thing you have to pay for, because every time you leave the house, you're spending $50, $100, $200. And on top of that, you have taxes and fees. And in America now, we're paying a guilt tax where every time I pull out my credit card to use that, I have somebody asking me if I want to give a 20% gratuity, which to me is ridiculous, because a 20% tax on top of everything else is just, how can we live? I'm sorry, I feel for you, I've been there, but like I said, I don't think that has to be like this. I think there's definitely a lot of pressures, and we can find ways to cope with them, but I don't think that, hiding yourself in your house or moving to the middle of nowhere is it. It takes community, really. And one of the things about the satellite culture that we have, right, the commuting culture, the grinding culture, is that, our loss of community. Like I said, I just moved to this place. I met a couple of my neighbors, but, that was it. It was just high, and it's still very nervous. I mean, we can only really make these changes on our own within our household, really. Like I said, I don't think it has to be like this. And I don't think it always will be like this, because this isn't normal. This isn't natural. I think humans inevitably go back to what's biologically right for them, right? No matter what society demands on them, no matter what corporations or the government wants them to do, I think people will always kind of revert back to a naturalistic setting, right? That hardwiring that's in there that says, I'm part of the tribe, right? I want to do tribe things. And for those of you who say, oh, this is the world now, I disagree, because this is the world here in America. It's not the world everywhere else. Go to another country, right? Travel. Go see what the world's like in another place and see how kids are raised and see how people live their life, their social lives. Because having your work day and then right after that, and I'm not talking about when you're a kid. I'm not talking about when you're in your 20s and you're just going to go get hammered after work. No, just going out. Coffee, going for walks with groups of friends, socializing, talk about everything, right? You talk about politics, you talk about entertainment, you talk about your hobbies, you make plans to do things on the weekends. This sounds like something out of a movie in America, but that's how people live. Americans, that's how people live. That's how people live real lives. The life that we have here isn't real. That's what we need to understand. We've become hermits. Stop it. Call your friends. Say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Let's go bowling. Bowling, very American, iconic American traditional sport. Go bowling. Go for a walk. Go get coffee. Go to a restaurant together. But it's got to be on you. And you have to do these things. Call your friend. Get your friend group together. Develop a friend group. And you say, oh, I don't have friends. There's people out there who feel just like you, who want those friends, who want to be your friend. They want to be such, but they may not even know it, right? Become a bit of an extrovert if you have to. Make people uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable making people uncomfortable if you want to be comfortable. It sounds a bit crazy, but it's true. Talking in front of a camera is very strange to me. And it's something that I'm becoming used to. And I think dealing with the positive and negative comments are pretty interesting, because I'm not used to kind of the bit of small virality that I've been getting. But in the end, I just have to say, you don't need to live in kind of the social zombie apocalypse that America has become, right? The end of the world hasn't happened. Every other place in the world has continued to go on for the most part. People are social. People go out. People have fun. And this is a normal thing. This isn't something that happened once or twice a month. This is just how people live their life. And you can have that. And if the people around you don't feel real because they don't want that, because they don't want to be social, they're comfortable just working and going home, right? The only time that they go outside is their commute to and from work, then go somewhere else, If you have a skill, if you have a trade, you can go somewhere else. If it's too cold and people don't want to go outside and that's the reason, go down south. Go to another country. That's always my thing, because America's just too expensive for me at this point. America has no culture anymore, right? American culture has died. And I think that that's one of the reasons why people do run from each other. I think that's one of the reasons people do kind of do their own thing, and that's it, because what do we have in common anymore? But like I said, it doesn't have to be like that. If you have a passport, you can go to another country and just see what it's like. You know, make your move if that's what you want to do. You're not trapped. You have control of your own fate. You have control of your own social life, right? America can feel like a prison, and I understand that. But I think one of the things we need to understand is that we're not isolated in our feeling of isolation. You can be standing right next to somebody and they have that same belief that they are alone. But in that, you're not alone. And I think that people are starting to understand that, and people are asking themselves why. So I think that we will see change in the future. So I don't think it's necessarily a good time to be black-pilled about kind of that sense of loneliness, the loneliness crisis that we're experiencing in the States right now, because I think that this will pass as the culture changes. I do think that there's change ahead, but I think that change can take time. But if I'm going to leave you with anything, I want to leave you with this: you're not alone, right? They call it the loneliness epidemic, a loneliness crisis, because everyone's feeling that way. And if you feel that way, understand that you're not alone, and that there's still hope, and that there's things in your life that you can do to change, right? There's things that you can do in your life to not feel as lonely, to give yourself some social meaning, to find friends, to have connections, to make connections. It's not the end of the world. And you may feel like it sometimes. You may feel like you're all on your own, but you know, you're not. There's people out there. There's people next door, maybe. You know, there's people, if you're in an apartment under you or above you, who has these same exact feelings. Just don't be afraid. Build up the courage to say hi, to ask people, hey, what are you doing? You know? I think it's corny, it's from a movie, but I remember somebody saying, like, I only have to be brave for 10 seconds at a time. I love that quote. I love that idea, because it's true. You know, you only have to be brave. You only have to have enough courage for 10 or 15 seconds at a time, you know, to kind of get you through something. And that's gotten me pretty far in life, to be honest. I don't know what kind of like Hallmark movie I heard that in, but it's always kind of resonated. So just be brave, get out there and say something. And I think that social change is on the way. I'm not black-pilled or think that the world is over, because I've seen the world. And America is uniquely going through a very lonely phase, and maybe the greater West, but in other countries it still exists. And if other countries have it, then America can definitely have it. We just need to change ourselves a bit. But yeah, the past few days engagement have been really, really crazy. I'm trying to weed through the comments and try to respond to as many people as I can. But it really fills my heart to see so many people out there who resonate with the message that I've been delivering. And it is kind of crazy to see my hobby actually gain traction and be mirrored in for those who have mirrored my videos, I really appreciate it. There's nothing been too negative. Just, you know, kind of the normal accusations you'll get anytime you give your opinion, and trolls and things like that. But, you know, it is what it is. Life is what it is. And, you know, people out there have their insecurities, and that really doesn't affect me. So thanks for stopping by. You know, the money we made from the video, fancy hot chocolate, I really appreciate that too. I haven't been drinking as much because the marshmallows, they really get stuck in the mustache, and it's editing really. But cheers.